Greetings, Esoteric Nation. So, today we're going to talk about Tolkien on fairy stories. So the story goes that Tolkien was grading some papers at Oxford University, and he came across an empty page, right? That a student had handed in, but nothing was written on it. So Tolkien decided to write this little sentence: "In a hole in the ground there lived a hobbit." That is the first line on his Hobbit story, which inspired the Lord of the Rings, his masterwork. So I want to look at this particular line and draw some inspiration from it, similarly to the way that Christians study the Bible. Now, an interesting thing about studying writings this way, whether it's biblical writings or poems or any other kind of creative work, taking a short phrase and really analyzing it deep. What that uncovers is that there's something deeper, right? The phrase, the word is just the window dressing or the cover that opens a door and leads you into a deeper world. So I like this idea of taking one simple idea and exploring it, right? So this line, in a hole in the ground there lived a hobbit, right? Imagine that, imagine that we're in a coffee shop, right? And that, you are reading a work like Tolkien's work, or any other story. Opening a book, essentially you are going down a rabbit hole. This is the hole in the ground that gets the whole thing started. And that is what I'm trying to do with this series on Tolkien based on this essay on fairy stories. So a good way to illustrate it is you find yourself, let's say, in this book, to use this book as an example, and you read it for 30, 45 minutes in a local coffee shop. Now that is an actual image of going down your own rabbit hole, right? I often see that, you see that in libraries or out in public. People are, down in their rabbit hole, usually their phone, right? But that's not, the phone is actually toxic, right? In Tolkienian language, in fairy tale language, I would consider a phone Shelob's web. It sucks consciousness, meaning that it traps you, it enslaves you. And people are enslaved to their devices, including myself, right? I'm the first one to admit that I do have a mild addiction to these devices because, our phones are always with us, right? So you can't escape them. They're like another hand or another finger. They're literally a part of your body, especially if that's how, you operate in the economic world, right? There's no escape, right? So we have to be really, really careful with our phones because it's actually toxic, right? Now a book sort of neutralizes that, right? So I think, rather than going down the rabbit hole of our phone, which it's not going to lead us anywhere good. So you find a book and you dive into it in your, spare time. So you're at a coffee shop, you open the book, and now you are entering this rabbit hole. And what do you find? Right. So one of the things that you find is, like, at first, this rabbit hole functions as a way of escape. You are escaping from the world, right? Because you're trying to escape into something that's way more interesting. So initially, it's going to be a form of escape, which Tolkien talks about in his essay. But you escape into your rabbit hole. But what ends up happening is that you find a room through that escape. And in this room, you find other people. And what you realize is that now you have a community. You have like this underground community that, they've all, enter their own different rabbit holes from different entry points. But somehow, after maybe a couple of years, or maybe after the first book that you read, you find yourself in the same underground room. And this is when online communities are formed. Communities that are like-minded, that share a common goal and a common ideals, which usually begin through book study, right? Through either studying Tolkien or studying any other great writer. You can find an underground community, right? So it's a beginning, right? Now, if you keep going even deeper down the rabbit hole, eventually you'll come back up to the surface, to the same place that you sat down to read these books. Let's say the coffee shop, and what you learn, you take with you, right? Whatever it is that you learn, reading a particular book or a particular chapter or an essay, you are going to be able to overlay that to the people that you see in real life, kind of like those special Google glasses that you're able to have data overlaying what you see. So it's the same function when you go down the rabbit hole of a really good book, is that the treasures, the insights that you learn from them, you are able to overlay them into the people that we used to see as cardboard boxes, but now we see them at a much deeper level. And what makes the interactions interesting now is that, one is, they move from just being two-dimensional cardboard boxes that we used to just ignore to now much more complicated beings. And therefore our conversations, our interactions with them are going to be way more interesting, because we see the potential in people. We see how they're connected to a larger context, which they do not yet know or understand, but are yearning to connect to. And now you have the insight to be, and hopefully the skill to initiate them in that process of connecting them back to reality, right? Back to reality. So although initially we escape into a book, we escape into our own rabbit holes, but what happens is that our minds are transformed, so that when we come back out from our rabbit holes, we see the world totally differently, and we interact with people differently, and we read them like a book. So now my job is to develop some kind of a website so that we can open the channels of communication in a proper, mature manner, right? And this is what I hope to do with my projects of Esoteric Nation and the Lunar Academy and all the offerings within those systems.